You may have seen my 10-second short I made earlier, and I'm liking how it turned out, and it looks like some number might agree. I made this as an anniversary celebration for a familiar franchise I grew up playing, reaching 20 years. 20 years. I think I feel so old I might need one of these tennis ball canes. Though their devs are asking fans to wait for news regarding the anniversary, which should have happened if it weren't for the big deal keeping us homes for the past year. Anyway, I'm not here to tell you stories here. This is a totally professional tutorial about one of the elements I made up and used within my short. I might as well do it. Also, blah blah small percentage, blah blah consider subscribing and whatever helps my channel out, you know the drill. I know you watch Dream all the time. Alright, here's the project behind the curtains, looking kinda messy on solid view, but that's okay. Sometimes you need to get a little messy to have a decent look on your renders. See this square? I'll go over the material from start to end with the best of my ability to explain their stuff. Finally, open the project and get rid of the default cube. We need the most optimal and simple shape we call a square, or rather a plane. Modeling done. Good job. Create or use existing material on the plane. No modifiers needed, by the way. What's kinda needed, however, is the UV. Tap to edit mode and drag in a new layout to access the editor. You may follow on screen or do it your way. How I did it is set the pivot point to the cursor and move it to the top right corner. After that, select all vertices and scale twice the size. Now the UV is centered as you can see it as a graph. This is necessary for the gradient nodes I'll talk about later. We may tap back to object mode and now for nodes. First to add is either UV map or texture chords, some input node with an output labeled UV. If we preview directly, the plane should look like a few colors laid out like this after the editing, and this is what we want. Add in a gradient texture set to spherical. The sphere in the preview should be at the center of the square, the center of the UV. Now duplicate the node and set to radial, and the same center placement is displayed. The purpose of those gradients are to manipulate the coordinates to more of a circle look. We will see as we move on. As we add in the combine XYZ converter and connect the dots, should be a different set of colors looking like this. Awesome. Now we add in a noise texture. This would originally look like this before connecting the new chords, and this is after. The next node is the math converter set to greater or less than. This will be the transparency masking. We're gonna need a mapping vector for a little adjustment. We can play around with a few sliders until satisfied with how it looks. The distortion bit would look better for a fiery look. Next step is to do something with the fade as the radius goes outward. Well, we have already a spherical gradient texture which does that in fact. Let's use it. Try plugging it into the less than node. It gets there, but the fitting seems a bit too short. So we need to expand by dividing the texture. Looks like we need another math converter to fix the shrinkage. Set the node to add or subtract and adjust it. Before putting in the shaders, we need to change the blending mode to anything other than opaque, as well as disabling shadows. We also want to enable the bloom checkbox for the pretty bright light glow effect. Alright, moving on. Add 3 shader nodes. Transparent, emission, and mix. When the dots are connected correctly, the black parts are under transparent influence and the white parts are emitting. We're almost at the end, so the last thing is putting in the color. You might want to make some room for the color ramp converter and the hue saturation color. Connect the noise to ramp and set to constant. Something to note is using either the color or alpha outs doesn't really matter much, but I rather use what those dots match, so I use the alpha values for this. For the next node, choose the color of preference and connect it to the emission. Awesome, the general look is basically done, but it's looking kinda still. In order to play by time, you could either keyframe or create a driver at the one slider. Click on the slider in question and type in an expression. This case would be the current frame divided by the frame rate, or whichever is desirable by the speed. Note, sometimes the drivers might not be the same rate in some parts. If that happens, head over to the driver's layout and make sure the line is a straight linear graph of y equals x. If you don't see anything there, by the way, just select the mapping node. Alright, we know the thing is completely finished when it does things plain animation. I hope a thing or two is learned during the process, and if my tutorials are actually helpful. I tend to keep it simple and a little bit quick so I won't have to use more of our time than it needs to be. The series the character originally came from is 2 decades old in March 21st this year, and I'm looking forward to whatever upcoming news Capcom has to announce. I'll be shutting up now. I'm getting tired of reading my script anyway, so I'll get going then. People stay safe and have a good morning, evening, night, or whenever you are.